President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni sends a special message to the President of Rwanda, His Excellency Paul Kagame. That and more stories in our day today. Thank you so much for being part of us and always joining us. My name is Nahawe Kajura, but first are the headlines. Vendors urged to support the Smart City concept by Kampala Capital City Authority. At least 7 protesters killed in Sudan's Monday demonstration. In our sports today, Burkina Faso qualifies alongside Cameroon. Once again, thank you so much for being part of us. We start with one of our top stories. Now, the President of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, has sent a special message to his Rwandan counterpart, Paul Kagame, according to sources. Now, the message was delivered by Uganda's permanent representative to the United Nations, Adonio Ayebale. The development comes on the backdrop of reports that the talks between Rwanda and Uganda, which has stalled for over 3 years, are set to resume. Ali, the senior presidential advisor on special operations, who also doubles the Commander Land Forces, Lieutenant General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, earlier warned anyone abusing his uncle, President Paul Kagame. The latest developments, according to the experts, point to the resumption of talks between the two countries. Since 2017, the relationship between Uganda and Rwanda have been at their lowest, with both countries trading accusations against each other. Rwanda accuses Uganda of harboring rebels plotting to destabilize their government, on top of arresting its citizens, but the Kampala establishment denied the same. In return, Uganda accused Rwanda of sending spies to Kampala, especially in the security forces. The Cold War saw Rwanda close its border with Uganda in 2019, and any citizens wishing to cross from Kigali are not allowed. In 2019, Presidents Museveni and Kagame signed an agreement to end the bickering, and a year later, both countries signed an extradition treaty in a bid to normalize ties. Moving on in our top stories, the Kampala Capital City Authority Executive Director Dorothy Chisaka has called upon Kampala vendors to support the Smart City concept in order to contribute to the development of the country's capital city. Our reporter has more.
KCCA Executive Director Dorothy Chisaka was touring Usafi Market and the taxi park to assess the challenges at the facility following various complaints by Kampala vendors and taxi operators that the facility is not favorable. She said the smart city mindset was introduced to keep Kampala clean, hence urging vendors to support the concept by vacating the streets.
nange mbasaba nnyo ab'ekibuga mbasaba nnyo abawusafi abakatale n'abapaaka tukole ku kintu ekyo ekibuga kyaffe kibeere smart city.
It should be remembered that Kampala Resident City Commissioner Hood Hussein gave street vendors up to 17th of January 2022 to vacate the streets and go to Usafi Market. Chisaka revealed that Usafi Market has received about 320 vendors over the last 3 weeks. She emphasized that vendors will be evicted from the streets as long as they do not have a trade license that allows them to operate from the city. Chisaka also called upon taxi drivers to make use of Usafi Park and stop operating from roadsides.
Amaloboozi ge nafunye nti amaduuka ganyigirizibwa nga wano tewali takisi oba bwe kiba nti balina takisi ate nga tezitikka kati ekintu ekyo twagala tutunogera eddagala kiyinzibwa okuba nga bye tugamba actually nga waliwo n'eddagala lye tutanafuna twagala tukiteekako essira kirongooke Usafi ekole ki egende mu maaso.
A smart city is a framework predominantly composed of information and communication technologies to develop, deploy, and promote sustainable development practices to address growing urbanization challenges. Nalugo Muyingo, Africa Today.
Well, thank you so much, reporter Nalugo. Moving on in our top stories, the Uganda Young Democrats, a Democratic Party youth wing, commends government to approve maternity holidays for pregnant students to enable them access better healthcare services and plan for their return to schools afterwards. We have more on this report.
In his congratulatory message to all those who won leadership positions in the previous guild elections in high institutions of learning, the Uganda Young Democrats President Mr. Ismail Chiria said that the government's directive to allow pregnant students back into schools after full reopening of the education sector is an irrational decision tainted with emotions, whereas students have been encouraged to wait and return to schools after delivering and when their babies are at the right stage to be taken care of by another person as the way of enabling the child mothers to commence with studies.
The point is about the government's poor planning to allow pregnant girls in schools. We would like to appreciate government for opening up schools, which has been our long-time prayer since 2020. This brings to an end the longest school closure in the world. The long lockdown has left many girls pregnant and others are child mothers. The government's directive to allow pregnant girls in schools is an irrational decision tainted with emotions. It is not the first time girls are getting pregnant. But we don't know why government is very emotional giving out such an order or an elective. Schools have always been encouraged to wait and return to school after delivering and when the baby is old enough to be taken care of another person. The statement is saying that those days students have been conceiving, and we have been seeing parents, schools themselves, the communities have been allowing them to get out of school, deliver, then afterwards come back to the schools.
Mr. Ismail said that these pregnant students need special care and confidentiality, where some adopt pregnancy symptoms like vomiting and dozing, which calls for special attention that has not been provided for in schools by the government, and the government issuing a return to school directive for pregnant students will need to provide the necessary services to all students with the condition.
If I'm to say, special care and confidentiality. Some may not want to share desks. Some may not want to share some facilities. Some may come along with some pregnant symptoms like vomiting, dozing, spitting, eating too much, and others. This calls for a special care that is not available and not provided for in the school environment. Now the government is just giving a directive without preparing these institutions, without preparing the community, without preparing those who are going to stay with these students. Remember that these pregnant mothers, as I've said, that they require special attention and special care. The government has not provided any training, no facilities to this effect to teachers, non-teaching staff, and even the community to handle these girls who conceived at these different intervals.
Mr. Ismail finally commended the government to approve maternity holidays for pregnant students to enable them access better health services and efficiently plan for return to schools as well as their newborn babies. TV Africa News, Kachanchu Mtabazi reporting.
Well, thank you so much, reporter Kachanchu. We have a quick break. We shall come back with the international news. Welcome back from the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. In international news today, as crowds of people marched chanting slogans and waving flags, activists said Sudanese security forces opened fire on the protesters, killing 7 and injuring several others on Monday. Our reporter has more.
Monday's deaths bring to at least 67 the number of people killed in near-daily demonstrations, but the deadly security clampdown hasn't deterred protesters opposed to the military rule. In Khartoum, its twin city of Omdurman in Port Sudan, Madani Obaid and the western Darfur region, thousands continue to oppose General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan's power grab. Muhammad al-Amin, a protester, said that he was opposed to tyranny, dictatorships and any regime that stands against people's freedom or justice. Hamed Alsa, another marcher, hopes the mobilization will successfully bring about change and was there to resist the military coup that happened on October 25th, and hopes that their free revolution reaches the democratic civilian path and hopefully the Sudanese people will achieve all their goals. Monday protests have become one of the deadliest days since wide mobilization in favor of civilian rule. The military takeover has scattered hopes of a peaceful transition to democracy in Sudan, more than 2 years after a popular uprising forced the removal of long-time autocrat Omar al-Bashir in April 2019. The turmoil has been amplified after Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok stepped down earlier this month.
Away from that, tributes continue to pour in after the death of Mali's former president Ibrahim Boubacar Keita on Sunday. Now, Keita's rule was riddled with loads of controversies and criticisms, especially from the opposition before he was toppled through a coup in 2020. In the weeks before the 2020 coup, Ibrahim Boubacar Keita had been struggling with protests fueled by his handling of a jihadist insurgency and failure to turn around Mali's floundering economy. Despite differences of opinion, they paid tribute to a man of peace, a man of his word. Mamadou Koruma, a resident of Bamako, said that the president's death shocked him anonymously because he is the president, even though they fought him. Flamori Kamara, resident of Bamako, said that he can only pray to God that he rests in peace because he did what he could for the country, even if he did not finish his mandate. Mali's former president Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, who led the West African country from 2013 until he was ousted in a coup in 2020, died at the age of 76 in Bamako on Sunday, according to his family. Keita was 2 years into his second 5-year term when in 2020 he faced widespread street protests against his government and was toppled by the military, which is now under regional sanctions for failing to restore civilian rule. In the weeks before the 2020 coup, he had been struggling with protests fueled by his handling of a jihadist insurgency and failure to return around Mali's floundering economy. Moving on, the hotel keeper whose story inspired the film Hotel Rwanda failed to appear on Monday before the court for his appeal trial in the Rwandan capital, Kigali. Our reporter has more.
Paul Rusesabagina was found guilty in September of involvement with armed group National Liberation Front. The group is accused of carrying out deadly attacks in Rwanda in 2018 and 2019. The former hotel keeper was initially accused of terrorism and sentenced to 25 years in prison. The Rwandan prosecutor's office has appealed against the sentences handed to all 21 defendants. The Rwandan judicial authorities want the sentences to be extended. In a statement published last Friday, the defendant's family announced that he would not be appearing in court on Monday. Paul Rusesabagina is an opponent of Rwandan President Paul Kagame, whom he accuses of authoritarianism and fueling anti-Hutu sentiments.
Away from that, deposed Guinean President Alpha Conde, who is 83, left his country on Monday to go abroad for medical care. However, no details were disclosed on his diagnosis. Now, witnesses at the airport in Conakry confirm that the former president's plane was en route to Abu Dhabi. We have more on this report. The junta, which calls itself the National Rally Committee for Development, had announced earlier this month that the former president was not in good health and would be allowed to travel for treatment. Alpha Conde was overthrown in September 2021 by Kano Mamadi Doumbouya. He then spent more than 4 months in the custody of the military junta that deposed him. His ouster came less than a year after he ran and won a third term in office despite widespread protests. The regional bloc ECOWAS and other members of the international community had called for Conde's immediate release ever since he was detained. But Guinea's new military rulers vowed that Conde wouldn't be allowed to leave the country and seek exile. West African region leaders put travel bans into place after the junta failed to release him. The financial assets of junta leaders also were frozen. The politician was eventually freed in November and sent to his wife's home in the capital, Conakry. Africa Today takes a quick break. We shall come back with the business news. Welcome back from the break. You're still watching TV Africa, The Right to Know. In a business news today, the Committee of Officials meeting of the 4th session of Joint Permanent Commission between Uganda and the Republic of Tanzania has opened in Kampala. Our reporter has more.
Speaking during the opening ceremony on Monday, the State Minister for Foreign Affairs in charge of Regional Cooperation, John Mulimba, said the meeting is yet another opportunity for both countries to further strengthen ties. Mulimba said that the Republic of Uganda and the United Republic of Tanzania continue to enjoy warm and cordial relations as shown by the high-level visits between the two countries. Most recently, President Museveni undertook a 3-day state visit to the United Republic of Tanzania in November 2021. Mulimba added that prior to this, Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan had visited Uganda in April 2021, which was her first trip abroad as President of the Republic of the United Republic of Tanzania. He said that the last session of the Joint Permanent Commission had been held in 2019 in Dar es Salaam, where a number of decisions were agreed to further strengthen the relations between the two countries. He noted that the current meeting in Kampala is meant to review progress towards the implementation of the previous decisions. Minister Mulimba said that one of the factors that hinders smooth communication and implementation of the decision is the lack of focal persons in the different ministries, departments and agencies to coordinate with the Ministries of Foreign Affairs of the two countries. He noted that in order to be solved, there is need to designate focal point persons to follow up on issues agreed upon. He urged participants to observe standard operating procedures in a bid to avoid the spread of coronavirus.
Now let's turn your attention to our health news today. Beijing city officials are recommending people stop ordering items to be delivered from overseas after saying a local woman may have been infected by Omicron after opening a parcel. Now they repeated the theory that COVID-19 could be spread internationally on airports of frozen food, something many scientists have questioned. Now the infection comes less than 3 weeks before Beijing is set to host the Winter Olympics. We have more on this report. On Monday, China announced that it would not be selling tickets to members of the public of the Winter Olympics Games. As part of virus control measures, only people invited will be allowed to attend. It's not yet clear how they will be selected or whether they will have to quarantine. Health official Pang told reporters on Monday that the virus had been found on the surface of a letter the infected person had received from Canada, and also inside the unopened letter. Ms. Pang said that dozens of letters from the same batch were tested and 5 showed positive traces of COVID-19, including samples from inside unopened letters. Beijing Center for Disease Control said that possibility that the woman was infected by a parcel from another country could not be ruled out. If deliveries from abroad are opened, it has been suggested that this should be done outside with the opener wearing gloves and disposing of the packaging. All of that amounts to hyper-vigilancy about any new outbreak. If and when one is spotted, the reaction is severe. China has been wedded to this approach since the beginning because it's likely the leaders from Xi Jinping don't consider anything less would cause illness and death on a scale that would politically, economically and socially unacceptable. In our sports news today, Burkina Faso clinched a place in the last 16 at the African Cup of Nations behind host and group winner Cameroon on Monday, while Cape Verde must wait to see if it goes through as one of the 4 best third-place teams. We have more on this report.
Burkina Faso drew with Ethiopia 1-1 in its final Group A game in Bafoussam and was content to hold on for the point that took it through. Cyril Bayala put the Burkinabés ahead in the first half by sending a lob over the goalkeeper. Getane Kabede equalized for Ethiopia from the penalty spot early in the second half. Burkina Faso and Cape Verde both finished on 4 points, but Burkina Faso took second place in the group because it beat Cape Verde. Cameroon and Cape Verde also drew 1-1 in a game played at the same time in Yaoundé. Cameroon had already progressed but couldn't finish with a 100% record in the group stage despite captain Vincent Abaka putting it ahead with his 5th goal in 3 games at the African Cup. Gary Rodriguez gave Cape Verde a draw with a delightful goal, letting a cross run between his legs and flicking it in with a back heel. The final round of group games started on Monday, and the 16 teams to make the knockout stages in Cameroon will be decided by Thursday. A number of big teams including Senegal, Ghana, Egypt, Ivory Coast and Tunisia still haven't confirmed their places in the round of 16, and defending champion Algeria is last in its group and in deep trouble.
Well, thank you so much for being a loyal audience. For more we started from, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We should keep updating it. This TV Africa, the right to know.